Welcome to Occult Archives. You know that little corner of your mind where we like to take those history's most feared books and sort of dust them off, right? You've heard of them, the grimoires, whispering secrets, ancient texts that people have devoted their lives to or run away from in terror. They all hold ideas that have kind of echoed down through the centuries, haven't they? And I'm your host, ready to guide you on a deep dive into a work that's really got a bit of a mystique about it. Henry Cornelius Agrippa's The Philosophy of Natural Magic.
And I'm here to make sense of it all. Well, try to, at least. Agrippa was a fascinating guy, a scholar, a self-proclaimed magician, the mind behind the absolutely massive occult philosophy. And that first book, the one we're focusing on, oh, that's a real trip. But you know there's reason people keep coming back to these kinds of books. A real draw.
For sure. And for you, dear listener, we know you're busy, you want to get a grip on these complex topics, but who has time to wade through all that dense stuff?
Oh, yeah.
So think of this like your own personal shortcut through Agrippa's ideas about natural magic. We're zeroing in on those key concepts, the core arguments, giving you a clear, engaging understanding of his historical perspective, but without getting bogged down.
Precisely. We're digging into excerpts from Agrippa's The Philosophy of Natural Magic today. That first volume, remember, of his larger occult philosophy. And let me tell you, this book had a journey, compiled somewhere around 1509 to 1510, then first published in 1533. Finally, it shows up in English in 1651. We're working with a really well-edited and revised version of that English translation, trying to strike that balance, keeping things clear for you while staying true to his historical roots.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive, it's simple. To unpack Agrippa's fundamental understanding of what natural magic really is, how he defined it, where he thought its power came from, and most importantly, how he saw it all interacting with the natural world, the world we see and touch every day.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get into it. Right from the start, Agrippa spends a lot of time, almost right out of the gate, defending that term, magician.
And that tells you something right there, doesn't it? He knew. Even back then, that word magic came loaded with some pretty negative stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he was well aware that people would immediately jump to those sinister associations.
Exactly, and he's pushing back hard, saying that among knowledgeable people, magician meant something completely different, something much more respectable, wise, a priest even, or a prophet. And to back that up, he brings in some heavy hitters from history.
Oh, yeah. The Sibyls, for instance. He calls them magicianesses, right? And he emphasizes their prophecies, especially the ones about Christ. And then, of course, you've got the Magi, the wise men. They recognize Christ's birth because they understood, as he put it, the wonderful secrets of the world. It's like he's drawing a line between this magic and deep spiritual understanding.
He's not letting up either. Agrippa argues that the term magic itself wasn't just accepted by philosophers. He says it was commended by divines, like it wasn't at odds with religious doctrine at all. A pretty bold statement for the 16th century, don't you think?
No kidding. But he's not naive. He knows some people are going to have a problem with all this. So he actually warns them, flat out tells them to avoid his book completely. Compares it to the Gate of Acheron, the river leading to the underworld in Greek mythology. Like, stay away if you can't handle it.
Right. But for you, the listener who's open-minded, who wants to explore, he offers a different path. Read securely, he says. Take from it what you find profitable, what you can use and enjoy. He's encouraging a thoughtful approach, like a connoisseur sampling fine wine, choosing what appeals to you.
That's a good way to put it. He gets it. Not every idea is going to click with every reader. He's saying focus on the parts that resonate with you, that you find valuable. It's about engaging with knowledge actively. I like to think of it as a botanist, right? You study both the healing herbs and the poisonous plants. Understanding both is what deep knowledge is all about.
I like that analogy. And he goes on to make a clear distinction, right, between what he calls prodigies for ostentation, those flashy tricks, all show, no substance, and genuine practical magic, the kind aimed at doing good, preventing harm, healing the sick, making life better in real ways.
A crucial distinction. He's trying to establish magic as a legitimate part of natural philosophy, not just illusions or dark sorcery. He even points out that he's writing in a narrative style, reflecting those judgments of Platonists and other Gentile philosophers. They were huge influences on his thinking.
Here's where it gets interesting, though. Later in life, in another book of The Vanity and Uncertainty of Sciences, Agrippa actually retracts some parts of this earlier work.
Yeah, that always throws people for a loop.
He blames it partly on early copies of the book circulating before he could really polish it up. Imagine that. Back then, getting your work out there wasn't as easy as hitting publish online.
Definitely adds a layer of complexity, doesn't it? When we're trying to figure out what he really believed, it's like he's admitting that his earlier ideas, especially those that got out before he could fine-tune them, they might have been flawed or maybe just easily misinterpreted.
And he ends this initial address to the reader with a surprisingly humble request. He basically submits his work saying, "To your correction and censure, urging readers to help separate truth from error." Not exactly the image of a secretive magician guarding forbidden knowledge, is it?
Not at all. It paints a very different picture of him, a scholar wrestling with difficult ideas, aware of the limits of his own understanding, especially from his younger days. And this sets the stage for his big argument, that magic, far from being something dark or evil, was considered something truly special by ancient thinkers. The peak of high philosophy, he calls it.
Okay, let's dive into that a bit. Agrippa claims that magic comprehends, unites, and actuates something he calls the three principal faculties. Now, he doesn't really spell out what those are here, but it seems like he's hinting at his idea of how different levels of reality are all connected: the physical, the celestial, the intellectual.
Exactly. That unifying power is central to why he puts magic on such a high pedestal. He claims that the ancients esteemed it as the highest and most sacred philosophy. And to prove his point, he throws out a laundry list of historical figures who were, in his view, deep into the study of magic.
Oh, he name drops the greats, doesn't he?
He does.
We're talking Pythagoras, Plato. He specifically says they traveled to the prophets of Memphis, went all over the place to learn these sacred arts. It's like he's saying this wasn't just some abstract philosophy, it was practical, sought-after wisdom.
And think about that. He's implying that these guys, the foundation of Western thought, they weren't just sitting around thinking. They were actively searching out and studying what Agrippa considered magic. In these ancient centers of knowledge like Syria, Egypt, Judea, it makes you see their intellectual journeys in a whole new light.
And the list keeps going. Zamaxis, Zoroaster, Mercurius Trismegistus names tied to ancient wisdom and mystical traditions. Apollonius of Tyana, Osthenes, whose writings, Agrippa claims, were actually rediscovered by Democritus. He's building a lineage here, establishing intellectual credibility for magic, putting it right in the flow of ancient philosophy.
It's a brilliant move, really. By linking magic with these revered figures, he's trying to change its image, to present it as a serious field of study, something even the greatest minds of the past pursued with wonderful devoutness, considering it a great secret, as he puts it. It makes you think, doesn't it, about how we view knowledge and what we consider acceptable to study.
It really does. Okay, so moving on from these historical endorsements, Agrippa then dives into the idea of natural virtues that exist within things. He starts with those basic elements we all learned about in school.
This is where he starts to connect his ideas about magic to the tangible world, the world we experience every day. He begins with what he calls the elementary virtues, those fundamental qualities: heat, cold, moisture, dryness. He says these are the first qualities that can actually change a substance on a fundamental level. They're like the building blocks of matter itself.
Right, the core ingredients. And from those basic building blocks, he explains how we get what he calls secondary qualities in things that are made up of multiple elements, things like maturing, digesting, resolving. These come from the specific way the primary elements are combined, their proportions.
And it goes even deeper. He mentions tertiary qualities that have specific actions on particular parts of the body. So it's like this hierarchy of qualities, right? From the most basic to more and more specialized actions. It reminds me of how a chef combines simple ingredients to create complex flavors.
To show this in action, he brings in examples of artificial wonders related to fire. Things like that mysterious Greek fire, it could burn even on water, supposedly, or fires that could be put out with oil but reignited with cold water. It's almost like paradox, right? Highlighting how those basic elemental qualities can do some pretty unexpected things when they're combined.
Exactly. It's like those science's magic moments, right? These strange occurrences reinforce his point that those basic elemental qualities don't always act the way we expect when they're mixed together. It hints at the more occult or hidden virtues he's about to explore.
Which brings us to what most people think of when they hear natural magic, those well-known occult virtues that Agrippa talks about. You know, the seemingly mysterious powers that reside within certain objects.
This is where things get really fascinating. He gives a whole catalog of examples: lodestone attracting iron, the diamond supposedly counteracting that attraction, amber and jet drawing straw when you rub them. These are those classic examples of natural phenomena that back in his day, they couldn't really explain with simple mechanics. It seemed like magic.
And his list goes on and on. Asbestos, he says, won't burn. Carbuncle stones glow in the dark. And then he gets into more specific examples, things that supposedly affect health or even behavior. Aetites influencing fruit, jasper stopping bleeding, the Aeschines fish actually stopping ships in the water. Some of these stretch the boundaries of what we know today.
Definitely. Chameleon liver causing rain, heliotrope making you invisible, a perfume called liparus attracting animals. It's a wild mix, right? Things we might recognize as basic properties of materials mixed in with what sounds like folklore and ideas about sympathetic connections.
He even lists stones with incredibly specific powers: sinochitis to raise ghosts, anachitis to make images of gods appear, enectus to bring oracles and dreams. It's like the natural world is this vast treasure chest of hidden powers.
Right, full of untapped potential. And it's not just inanimate objects either. He talks about an Ethiopian herb that can dry up lakes, another one called latas that brings abundance to Persian kings' ambassadors, and a Scythian herb that supposedly makes you not feel hungry for days. Like, nature is this giant pharmacy,
Yeah.
but also a source of all these strange abilities.
But then comes the big question. Where do these occult virtues come from? Agrippa admits that even the greatest minds of the past, Hermes, Zoroaster, all those guys, they couldn't fully explain it.
That's an important point. He's acknowledging the limits of human understanding, especially when it comes to those deeper connections in the natural world.
And his answer, it involves what he calls the spirit of the world, a concept he borrows from thinkers like Democritus, Orpheus, the Pythagoreans, those guys who said all things are full of God.
This spirit of the world, he sometimes calls it the quintessence, is like this universal medium that links all those occult virtues to their subjects. It's this pervasive force that permeates everything, existing above and besides the four basic elements: earth, air, fire, water, like a fifth element, but more subtle, ethereal, you might say.
He goes on to say that divine powers, what some philosophers called gods, are spread throughout everything. And he draws a parallel to the human soul, how it extends its intellect and imagination through the human spirit to interact with the body.
The key is this idea of a necessary intermediary. Like, the soul needs the spirit to interact with the physical body, right? In the same way, the soul of the world, which he connects to those divine powers, needs the spirit of the world to bridge the gap to the material world, to bestow those wonderful gifts, as he calls them.
So the spirit of the world is like a conduit, a bridge between the spiritual and the physical. That's how those hidden virtues manifest in the world around us. A very interconnected, holistic view of the cosmos. Everything's tied together.
Precisely. In this view, nothing is truly isolated. It's all linked through this subtle energy. And that leads him to his discussion of those natural sympathies and antipathies between different elements in nature.
This section is full of some truly weird examples, like vine and cabbage can't stand each other, vine and olive tree planted by someone wanton. And that's just the beginning. It's like a whole soap opera playing out in the plant world.
Right, and what's striking is how detailed he gets. It's not just plants feuding. He lists a whole bunch of animal antipathies, too. Crabs and snakes, pigs and crabs, serpents in the sun when it's in the sign of Cancer, on and on.
Yeah.
It's like nature has its own set of rules about who gets along and who doesn't.
He really does go all in. Scorpions and crocodiles, ibis and crocodiles. Apparently just a feather from an ibis can make a crocodile freeze up. Bustards and horses, harts and rams or vipers, elephants and hogs, lions and roosters. Some of these sound like they're straight out of mythology.
They do, don't they? And he adds these little details like panthers can't stand being around anyone who's been using hen broth, especially with garlic. Or how foxes and swans are natural enemies, bulls and jackdaws too. It's like this world of hidden conflicts and attractions playing out all around us, all the time.
And it's not just between different species. He mentions rivalries between birds, jackdaws and owls, kites and crows, and even water creatures like dolphins and whirlpools, mullets and pikes. It's like harmony and discord. They're both woven into the fabric of nature. It's a balancing act.
Yeah. And then there's that example of the civet cat being terrified of the panther. He says if you hang their skins together, the panther's fur falls out. Or the lamb's fear of the wolf, and how wolf parts can supposedly cause problems for sheep. These examples point to these deep connections, these unseen forces at work.
Oh, and the story with the marlin, the crows, and the fox. That one's a whole adventure, a kind of natural alliance formed out of shared hatred. He even mentions some really obscure enmities, like the linnet bird and the donkey hate each other because donkeys love to eat thistles. And then there's the eslon and the donkey, their blood supposedly won't mix. And their offspring, they die if they hear a donkey bray.
It makes you wonder where he even heard some of these.
I know, right?
But, as strange as they sound to us now, Back then, these examples would have been seen as proof, more evidence of those hidden connections and forces in the natural world. It all supports his argument about those occult virtues and the spirit of the world.
Building on that idea, that interconnectedness, and those inherent sympathies and antipathies we've been talking about, Agrippa then gets into how everything in our world is linked to and influenced by the planets.
It's classic astrology, really. And Agrippa was a believer. He lays out this elaborate system of correspondences where different elements and qualities are governed by specific planets and their celestial powers, like this cosmic web of influence stretching across the universe.
So the life-giving light of fire, that's associated with the sun, its heat, with Mars, and so on. He assigns different aspects of the Earth to the moon, Mercury, and the starry heavens. The mass of the Earth itself, that falls under Saturn's rule. Even the elements air and water have their own planetary rulers.
And it goes beyond just the elements themselves. He connects the planets to those active forces in nature, to matter itself, even to concepts like fruitfulness and the speed at which things happen. Jupiter and Venus are linked to abundance, Mars to sudden events, Mercury to quickness and skill.
He categorizes plants according to the planets, too. Fruits belong to Jupiter, flowers to Venus, seeds and bark to Mercury, roots to Saturn, wood to Mars, leaves to the moon. He even explains why some combinations work the way they do. Like Saturn and Jupiter together, they produce fruit, but no flowers, he says. It's quite intricate.
He also attributes those more abstract qualities to the planets. Beauty goes with Venus, strength with Mars, reinforcing that idea that the planets impart their own essence, their own fundamental nature, onto the things they rule.
These connections extend to the mineral world, too. The weight and clamminess of stones, that's Saturn. Their usefulness and temperament, Jupiter, hardness. Mars. The sun governs their vitality, Venus their beauty, Mercury their hidden virtues, and the moon. That's linked to their common everyday uses. He even mentions those specific letters and symbols associated with each planet, like a deeper symbolic layer.
It's all about these correspondences between the heavens and earth, absolutely crucial to Agrippa's understanding of how celestial virtues can be drawn down and used through natural things right here in our world.
And that's exactly what he explores next, how to put this knowledge to work. How to attract those planetary influences. It's like harnessing the power of the cosmos.
The main idea is this. Use things that naturally belong to a particular star. Things that share its qualities, its essence. By doing that, you align yourself with its influence. He uses the analogy of wood catching fire easily because it's got that sulfurous, oily nature like attracts like, right?
But he stresses it's not just about using one thing. He says you should use multiple things of the same kind, all aligned with the same celestial idea and star. That way you draw a stronger, more focused effect through the soul of the world, that intermediary force we talked about, like amplifying the signal.
That concept of opportunely fitted matter under a similar celestial harmony is key. It's about setting up the right conditions, creating that sympathetic connection to pull down the influence you want. He uses some pretty cool analogies to explain this.
Like he talks about how when you crush a mustard seed, that's when its pungency is released. Or how heat can reveal messages written in invisible inks like onion juice or milk. It's those hidden properties being activated under the right conditions.
Right. He even mentions writing with goat fat, where the letters only become visible when the stone they're on is put in vinegar, or how a sudden shock can trigger a kind of latent madness in a dog. These examples show how celestial harmony can potentially unlock and amplify those hidden virtues in the world.
His main example is attracting virtue from the sun. He says to use higher solary things, things with strong connections to the sun, from the plant, mineral, and animal kingdoms. Bring them together at the right time, and you can draw down that singular gift through the sun's rays and the action of the spirit of the world. It's about working with nature's rhythms.
And this then expands into a discussion of attracting not just those celestial and vital gifts, but intellectual and even divine ones. This is where Agrippa taps into Platonic, Hermetic, and Kabbalistic ideas about how reality is structured.
He presents this view of the cosmos, a hierarchy, earthly things reflecting the celestial, which correspond to the intellectual, and ultimately to that exemplary world of perfect forms, the blueprints of everything, you might say. It's a grand vision.
It's about that descent of power, the quintessence or spirit of the world coming down from the heavens, spiritual virtue flowing from the intellectual realm, original perfection originating from that exemplary realm. Agrippa states pretty clearly that all magic and all occult philosophy flows from this series and order.
He even brings up the Egyptian concept of nature itself as a magicianess, naturally attracting like to like, reinforcing this idea of these inherent correspondences and attractions built into the very fabric of the universe.
He goes on to explain how those celestial gifts can be drawn down to Earth through things that share a similar nature with the heavens, especially when the celestial influences are favorable. He even suggests that those attracted celestial gifts can then help facilitate contact with celestial beings, what some might call angels. It's about attunement, aligning yourself with those higher energies.
Citing figures like Iamblichus, Proclus, and Mercurius Trismegistus, he talks about receiving intellectual, angelic, even divine gifts through those naturally divine matters things, within an inherent connection to those higher realms. But, he stresses, they have to be properly understood and used at the right times.
He even brings in St. Augustine, who confirmed this fundamental harmony, that interconnectedness of those supercelestial, celestial, and natural worlds, all bound together by what he called one operative virtue. It's a unified vision of creation.
Agrippa then dives into the nitty-gritty of the magician's art, how to use tangible things, starlight, fumes, sounds, natural objects to draw out those less obvious occult things. Things that he believes have their own kind of reason, perception, harmony, and divine proportions. It's like a hidden intelligence within nature.
This is where those ritualistic aspects of magic start to appear, though always within that framework of natural correspondences. He gives examples of receiving divine influences through natural means, like using a stone from a civet cat's eye under your tongue for divination, or selenite and moonstone for similar purposes.
He mentions stones thought to have the power to call forth images of gods, anchitis, or keep spirits around, synochitis. Herbs like aglaophotis and reangelita to induce visions. Some of this stuff really sounds like the foundation for later magical traditions and folklore.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He even touches on this wild idea of herbs that can raise the dead, balisis, and gives examples of seemingly impossible revivals of other creatures using various natural substances. Drowned flies brought back to life in ashes, drowned bees revived with catnip juice. It's almost like proto-science, but with a magical twist.
He wraps up this section by talking about how you can stir up those gods of the world and their spirits through carefully chosen materials, underscoring his belief in that hierarchy of the cosmos and the possibility of interacting with spiritual beings through the right natural channels. It's like opening up a line of communication.
So as we conclude this deep dive into Agrippa's philosophy of natural magic, we've explored a lot of ground. His attempt to redefine what magician really means, shifting it from sorcery to wisdom. His argument that magic was considered top-tier philosophy by the ancients, studied by some of the most brilliant minds in history.
We looked at how he rooted magic in the natural world through those elemental and occult virtues, and the mystery surrounding where those occult virtues come from. We delved into the spirit of the world, that vital link connecting those virtues to everything else.
We went on this incredible journey through that fascinating, sometimes truly bizarre world of natural sympathies and antipathies, and that complex system of planetary influences affecting everything here on Earth. And finally, we examined his ideas on how to draw down those celestial virtues through carefully chosen natural things, and even attract intellectual and divine gifts.
It really opens up a window into this historical worldview where the natural and supernatural were intertwined, where hidden powers and cosmic connections were seen as real and potentially accessible through a deep understanding of those intricate correspondences. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if we've lost something along the way?
Absolutely. What's so striking is the sheer number of connections Agrippa tries to make between seemingly unrelated parts of the natural world, from the ordinary to the extraordinary, all to explain the potential of what he calls natural magic.
So listener, consider this. Agrippa's work is a landmark attempt to ground magic not in superstition, but in natural philosophy. Philosophy informed by ancient wisdom and a profound belief in divine principles shaping the universe.
That brings us to a final, thought-provoking question. Even with our modern scientific understanding, our focus on purely physical explanations for everything, do we still have a sense of wonder about the hidden potentials of the natural world? What about those things we can't fully explain? The way the environment affects our well-being, the human fascination with the unknown? Do any of those resonate, even just a little, with those ancient ideas about hidden virtues and cosmic connections? It's certainly worth pondering. That long, winding road of human understanding.
It is, isn't it? The search for knowledge, the mysteries we keep trying to unravel. Maybe some things are best left to wonder.
Maybe so.